So in this presentation, I will discuss how to make effective figures for use in research papers and presentations. So we will discuss topics like making good block diagrams and figures for research results and how to choose the right type of charts. This is a topic which many students make a mistake. So first, uh, when including your figures, I assume you are using LaTeX. So use PDF or EPS figures instead of JPG or PNG. Most people use JPG or PNG, but the quality of those figures doesn't come out well because these are pixel based formats, so they cannot be scaled very well. Whereas PDF and EPS, they are vector image formats. So even if you scale them, uh, their quality is not lost and the final finishing comes out really well. So how to go about using suppose PDF figures, and so first, so as I assume you make your figures in either Visio or PowerPoint or Draw.io or some software like that. Then you can save that figure or that slide as PDF, and then uh, if you are using Linux, you can use PDF crop command so that it will remove the white space in the slide and give you just the crop figure, and then you can directly include that figure in your LaTeX file. And if you are using, for example, draw.io, you don't have to use PDF crop because in draw.io you can directly save export a figure as a cropped figure. So all those workflows are very easy. You just need to once change it from uh, use of JPG or PNG figures to PDF figures, and you will see the quality difference. Of course, if you are using Microsoft Word for writing your research paper, I don't know how this will fit, but for if you are using LaTeX, this solution will be really good. So make clear figures, avoid scan of figures or tables because so here some person has used this is not a good example. So because figures have a lot of value, they add a lot of value to the research paper. They can be a lot of information. So we will first discuss how to make block diagrams because they are helpful to explain your technique. So there's a famous saying that one picture equals to thousands of words. So, and this is especially true in research field because research topics are already very complex, and if you don't convey them visually, remembering them becomes very difficult. So this is the paper from the field of computer architecture or operating system. So here the author has very clearly separated uh, the the optimization that need to be done in the processor and the optimization that need to be done in operating system and how they you know uh, interface with each other, how the information flows, the each bit. So this is very helpful for writing your own code or making an implementation. Another very powerful strategy is to use markers. So here is an example. So here they have used markers like 1 2 3 4 5 6 and so on, and then in the text they are using these markers. So uh, here are this is the marker that they have used, this is the marker that they have used. So if in the text you were to say see the figure top left. Now top left could mean anything, but when you have used these markers like 1 or 2 or 3, then you can refer to the specific portion in the figure, which makes it very. Here is another example effective. Here there is 1 2 3 4, and there is another marker. So one marker is white on black, another marker is black on white. So these are showing two workflows. So if you were to see this one and then two and then 3 and 4, so although this is a figure, it looks like a video. That means you are not only explaining a static image, but you are explaining a whole flow, which makes it very powerful way of explaining your technique in the research paper. And even though you may be having a large figure, but your innovation may be limited, so you can highlight by showing it with a different color. Now you need to make the figure self-contained. So for example, here, although here the acronyms are defined right in the figure itself, but the number of acronyms are too many, right? So you can draw it very easily so that you use much fewer number of acronyms. And here it uses acronym, for example, IMA, which is defined right here. T refers to the tile, and DAC, ADC are well known acronyms. So this helps the reader in quickly understanding the topic instead of all the time seeing the acronym and the figure, acronym and the figure. Another very very important point, and it's also because most people make this mistake, just to save the space they reduce the font size of the figure too much, so that the font is not even visible, the font in the figure is not even visible. For example, here the font in the text is reasonably good, but font in the figure is too small, and if I were to zoom in, then this text goes outside my window, right? If I want to zoom in and see the font in the figure, then the uh, text goes outside my window. So all my time is lost in just adjusting the zoom factor, which is not very good. So that's why the font size of the figure should not be too small compared to the font size of the text around it. Which, and if you ensure this, then it reduces your effort in changing the zoom factor. Now, whether I should use color or grayscale figure, so the answer is not straightforward, because sometimes use of color is very very important, because color itself encodes some information. For example, if you use a heat map, in the heat map color is very very important, and similarly in other diagrams, if you use colors, you can show the differences more easily, it is more visually appealing. But remember, there are also disadvantages of using color. One disadvantage is that the color figures will be larger. Second is that in many many journals they charge extra charges for each color figure. So if you cannot afford paying that fee, it is better to make figures different shades of gray like this, which is considered acceptable in many of the fields. So if you can draw your figures, you can always redraw your figure without using detailed colors. But for the online paper, journals don't charge money for the color figures, but for the print, they charge money for the color figures. So this is another consideration you have to keep in mind. And one more, rule of thumb I will give you is that do not use very dark color. They look very very heavy, and especially in the print, they come out even bad. They come out worse. So use light colors and gentle color, and maybe over time you will learn more how to use the colors effect. Another is that you should avoid the situation where a page has only figures. So here is an example on the right where I have taken these figures from a single page from a research paper. So this page has only figures, and the text which describes this figure is either on the previous page or the next page. So now you can understand the reader has to switch back to the back and forth to understand the figure and the description. The figure is incomplete without the text, and the text is incomplete without the figure. Another very very important point is to avoid vertical text. It's very very difficult to read. So especially, one thing you have to remember is that many people nowadays are not printing the research paper and reading it. They are reading it on the go. That means on the mobile or the desktop or even their own mobile phone. So if they are reading it with laptop, rotating the laptop is impossible, right? So now if I want to read this vertical text, I will have to rotate my neck, right? So it's very very uncomfortable. Um, so better. Similarly, you should also avoid vertical tables. Most people will just skip it. So what is the point of including a table which hardly anybody will read? Better. And one more thing, some people include both this kind of text. So here to read this text, you have to rotate your neck anti-clockwise, and to read this text, you have to rotate your neck clockwise. That means at the end of reading this research paper, you have to go to neurosurgeon to get yourself, treated. I'm joking, but you should. A better strategy, if your labels are long, you can use slanted text, which is much better. You can just slightly tilt your eyes and read this. It's much easier to read. At the same time, don't go to such extreme. So here, uh, the 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 horizontal spacing between different columns is too small that you cannot even understand which check mark belongs to which of the column heading. Or you can use acronym for labels. If your labels are very long, then you can use acronyms. But of course, use of acronyms has limitations, because it introduces another level of indirection. So, but this is useful if you are having too many figures. and you want to, if you're limited by the page limit, so you can just once define the acronym and use them again and again. Now, a very important point is to choose the starting point of axis wisely so that you can focus on the fine variations in data. So here I've taken this figure from a paper, which, so if, when they are showing this performance gain for this setup, their uh, beginning point and the end point, that means the limits of the y-axis, they are different from the figure on the right, and they have chosen the y-axis limits very very wisely so that they can focus on the fine variations. If they were to use the same axis limit in both the figures, the fine grain variations the data will not be very very visible, right? So you should always choose uh, the limits on the y, especially the y-axis, very very carefully. But sometimes you'll find out the data values are spanning a large range. Not all of them can fit in the single figure, right? So you have multiple options. One option is that you can use log axis. So of course, even with log, there is the visual appeal is sometimes not that good. Or you can make separate graphs for small and large values if possible, so that you can show the fine grained variations. Or you can zoom into a portion of the chart. So here, for example, they are, although they are showing the whole figure, but now you can see, unless they were to have this, this, uh, if they were to not zoom in, all these values will look same. So that's why they have zoomed into this portion to show it separately. Another thing is sometimes only few values may be large, so you can show them as clipped values. So here they have shown that these values are actually exceeding this range. That's why they have just directly written the number here, so that they don't have to use a higher range. Or you can use chart with broken axis. So here, for example, they have broken axis both in the x axis and also in the y axis. So in this way, they can show, although this is a log plot, but it's more clearly, more easily shown because there are some gaps. Now, the colors or the shades of different bars in the histogram should be clearly different. Here is a very good example of that. So there is no confusion. Sometimes people use just minor shade differences, then it becomes very difficult to contrast different bars in the histogram. Also, sometimes it's also good to write the number on the histogram bar, so that, because otherwise I will have to draw a projection to the y-axis and find out what that value is. That's slightly difficult. So seeing the numbers directly saves my time. Also, make the figure uh, caption self-contained. Don't expect that reader will read the whole text to understand the figure. That means even from the figure they should be able to understand something. So here for example, they say motivational example. I don't understand in what way it motivates. I have to understand the text and then come to the figure. So it's not very good. But here, the good point here is that although they have used the acronyms B and F, they have defined them right here, which is a good approach. Similarly, even while you are making, when you are writing different sections in your paper, avoid too much referencing to other sections. Especially future referencing is not considered so good. At least past referencing is considered okay. For example, when you are in section number 2, don't too much say that okay, this point will be discussed in section number 7 or 8 or so on. Although when you are in section number 7, you can say that this point was already clarified in section number 2. So because when they are on page number 2, they have not read page number 6. So if you are too much referencing to different sections, then maybe your writing is not so coherent. Okay, now line chart or bar chart, which chart should I include, right? So this is a very important question. So first of all, you have to ask what degree of continuity the data values have. So there are three, broad categories. One is that your data values may be continuous, like temperature or time, which can be divided into infinitely small increments. Another is it could be discrete, like number of elephants. You cannot uh, further, divide them, unlike temperature or time. And these members of these values are numbered, not named. And another is categorical, like values like states or fruits. So that is almost same as discrete, except that values are different enough, each have a name. Okay? So this continuous is in one category and discrete they are in another category. So now to decide whether you should use line chart or bar chart, you should ask which is best to visualize the data. So in both bar and line charts, y-axis varies continuously, right? As you can see, y-axis is continuous in both the charts, but x-axis is continuous. Here x-axis is continuous, but in the line chart, and in the bar chart, it is discrete. Now let us see an example to understand. Now suppose you present this data. Uh, this is the height of 10-year-old people. This is the height of 12-year-old uh, uh, kids, right? So if you just present the left figure, right, then you are only making claim about the height of kids when they were 10-year-old and when they were 12-year-old. You are not saying anything about in between, right? So your conclusion is that 12-year-old people are taller than 10-year-old people. You are not saying anything about 11-year-old or 11 and a half year old and so on. Here, some people may present the same data with line chart. So here, what they are claiming is that as you get older, you get taller. That may be true, but where is the proof? Have you actually gone and recorded all these data points? So without recording the data points, how can we just generalize, right? It's not guaranteed that although everybody knows the height increases, there is no guarantee that the height increases linearly. Maybe it increases in the first 6 months, it reaches uh, height of that of 12 and then it saturates. No one knows, right? So it is incorrect to draw a line unless you have really made lot of measurements in between. Only then you can make interpolation. Right? So be careful. You cannot claim to show more information than what you actually recorded, right?